Mach 3, give me crew show on 2, 3, and 4.
Line 1, X1.
6, 3. Mach 3, give me start line 2.
5 electric. Mach 3. Line 1 up.
Mach 3, give me start line 1 and crew show on 7 and 9.
Line 1, crew show 79, Mach up.
Yeah, do something. I hate weapons.
Super Ops, line 3, Red Ball, Avionics.
Super Ops. Line 7 is code 3 for light in the gear handle.
Fuck.
So I know I've actually served with Eric Stromsky for the entirety of our career, I think, pretty much. We got to Luke Air Force Base at pretty much the same time, and then we PCS to Holloman Air Force Base at pretty much the same time where we ended our career. He ended his career as a chief inspector in quality assurance. No, you went somewhere after that, right? You were.
I was in support.
Yep. And then Hackworth, we met him when he was a quality assurance inspector working for Eric Stromsky. I was the product improvement manager, which, as you know, is the most prestigious and critical position in aircraft maintenance by far.
A lot of sacrifices.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, I'm really surprised I didn't just skip senior and get right to chief after that position. It was really surprising that I walked away from such an illustrious career. So,
such a springboard.
Really, this conversation, what I wanted to talk about is some of the things we did back when we were all serving together at Holloman, was kind of recognizing things that QA does right, but more importantly, things that QA does wrong. So kind of really the first thing I want to talk about, Eric, I'm sure you remember when we had a UCR, or I think it was a UCR for a parking brake not set on a vehicle.
That's right.
And that had been a UCR since time immemorial. And when we really kind of, I think a lot of times at QA, especially with chief inspectors, they don't question a fail until someone comes into QA to argue the fail.
Right.
There's not like a cursory review of all the things that happened the night before, and then you kind of pick through it and make sure that your guys made the right call. It's almost an adversarial setup where you're waiting for someone to call you on it, and if no one calls you on it, then everything is assumed to be an accurate sort of call. And I know with you and your chief inspector, a lot of times you would look at those things that were, that seemed like it was what they call a clean kill, where nobody was really going to raise a stink over it. And when it came to that parking brake, I think a lot of people were really surprised that anybody was looking into whether that was a UCR or not. Do you want to talk about why you looked at it and what we kind of came to the conclusion of?
Well, I remember, I do remember that one. There's a couple big ones like that. I remember grounding the aircraft was a big one. That was one of those fails that no one ever questioned. It was never a second thought in someone's mind when they read that. And I can't remember who the inspector was, but somebody had said that they thought they that reg had disappeared, had gone away. And what happens in QA is you start building upon levels of regs that may have addressed a certain specific situation, right? So like a parking brake on a golf cart is not the same thing as a parking brake on a truck with a brake that's in op. And
right.
Once we started,
or a manual, or a truck that has a manual
right.
transmission, a parking brake, right? There's a big difference in
and
a
that's
manual
where,
and automatic.
That's where that regulation started. And for years and years of, this being groomed into the people in maintenance, you start as a staff sergeant, you get used to written up on it, and then you carry it on as your QA, and then you become master sergeant and senior, and your airmen are getting these write-ups, and you never question it. So it just takes one person to actually kind of question: is this still a valid regulation? Is this still something we still need to be writing up? And I remember the argument was like, oh, it could roll into an aircraft, right? And I feel like a lot of common sense is lost in QA, where yes, it's black and white, but at what point has a golf cart ever rolled into an aircraft unless it was 90-mile-an-hour winds out there or something?
Yep.
I'm sure it's happened maybe somewhere, someplace in time, but overall, it's not something you need to worry about. And that's how it started the conversation is, why do you have to set a parking brake on a golf cart, right? Were you parked on a hill? Were you,
Right.
were you towing anything with a golf cart, right? All these questions started coming up. And as we sat down and argued, the basic argument was it's just something we've always written up, something that's always been a thing. I remember we started looking at all kind of age regs and vehicle maintenance and everything. We couldn't find one shred of evidence saying that was a UCR.
Yeah.
Right. And even the reg in that little handbook they gave us in QA was so vague and general about vehicles in the flight line, had nothing to do with parking brakes on a golf cart. Right. So, but that's a good thing, is getting people talking, understanding like, hey, takes one person to challenge something, the status quo. And next, you're finding out that all these UCRs for years were actually nothing.
So,
right. And go ahead.
What's interesting is when that fail was kind of scrutinized, I can't remember who the inspector was at the time, but if I remember correctly, they got a little bit defensive that anybody was questioning what category it was. And, especially in stuff like this, you don't have room for ego, because it's important to do the right thing and without concern for who made the call, because it's an opportunity to learn. Anytime your ego kind of gets introduced, you do ego protecting stuff, the opportunity to learn might be lost. But
right.
I think there is and I see this a lot in my second life as a law student, I think a lot of the times, especially with QA fails, the inspector has an outcome that they want or that they expect, in which case you find a parking brake not set and it's, that's a UCR, because historically or experience-wise, it's always been a UCR, and they never dug down to see if it actually is. Right. So the outcome is already established, and now they just need to populate the QA report with whatever the fail was to make it aligned to what the outcome they knew it should have been, without any analysis of the regulations of whether it should or shouldn't been.
Right.
Like, Hackworth, did you ever experience when you were a QA inspector where you would find something and you knew what it was supposed to be, and you would kind of frame your observation around, this is going to be this outcome, and then you'd almost craft your evaluation based on the outcome you expected?
So there's different times where I've found like a UCR. I can't name one off the top of my head right now, but it should be just, clean kill. But then what I learned, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question, but what I learned though from working with Ostromsky is be prepared to back it up. You know what I mean? Don't make sure it's not just a BS kill just because that little book that you're referring to told you to write it up. Make sure it's not a vague, like, make sure it's going to add value to, the metric, if you will. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I tried to do. I probably didn't do a very good job when I was still learning how to be an inspector. I was just focused on, like, oh, I got him. So, hey, look what I got for you, kind of thing. But once I started to get more comfortable in the role and to realize what a QA inspector is supposed to do, then I started to literally like look for, okay, what's going to add value to the overall, fighter group or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, as a young inspector, when you get in there, you're there's two types of inspectors. There's guys that they want to do a good job. They want to find the right items, but they're finding the things they were used to finding or used to getting written up on. You walk the flight line, and we can all go out and fail the crap out of every flight line we walk on.
Right.
But your point is, hey, is it value added? Is it a common sense write-up? Right. There's some things that are safety related, and you can't really pass on that. Right. We can get into we can talk about all day personal feelings about when you walk up to some guy without a safety glasses on when he's underneath trying to safety wire, right? Yeah. But as QA, you're not really supposed to bring those feelings into account. But in the reality, when you find a piece of safety wire in the floor that's 20 feet behind the aircraft in the hangar, is that really, in the grate, is that really going to be a major FOD fail, right?
Yeah, I remember. You remember Bob, the civilian guy at Loop?
Yeah, Bob. He used to walk around with FOD in his pocket.
He came up to one of our pro supers with a handful of FO, nuts, bolts, big rocks, and he showed it to him. And the guy's like, "Oh, holy shit, where'd you find that?" He said, "Out in the grass." And the pro super literally slapped his fucking hand. And it's like, it's like if you know, and it makes me think, Eric. I mean, we came into the same time. Like we were both at Luke together when we were pulling engines like crazy. If you remember the late '90s, where
Yep.
we had jets go down like crazy. I literally didn't know there was a TO for engine removal and install till I was like a senior airman, and I had done probably 30 or 40 motors.
Wow.
Because in late 1998, it was, you know, when I joined, it was almost a scarlet letter of shame if you were a staff sergeant and you had to reference the book to know what you were doing for literally anything. And TO compliance was literally, the book only came out when QA was around, or when it was an ORI, UCI, or whatever new acronym they make up for every 2 or 3 years. And at the time, QA almost seemed necessary or appropriate because and it just could be I had an isolated incident, or Luke had an isolated incident. But if you look at the quality of the maintenance that we were doing, or at least the TO compliance we were doing in the late 90s compared to when, the 2015 on, very rarely would you find somebody out there, not following the book. And even if they weren't following the book step by step, they weren't necessarily cutting like major corners, pencil whipping full ops checks and stuff like that. They might skip one step that they knew was not pertinent to this check for efficiency. And, but QA is always looking. So when you're no longer chasing a safety of flight issue because the maintenance across the Air Force has gone up to such a degree that nobody's doing, flagrant TO violations, but QA still has to find stuff and they're still looking. That's when the screws starts getting turned to people.
I think that's a little part of the problem too, is, as maintenance increased, we all know the tempos at, even though Luke was a training base and Holloman was a training base, tempos go up, way up, and the QA does not change. Your stats stay the same. So if you do 100 engine pulls, right, you still get it 100 passes or fails, right? Yeah. I remember Anthony, there was a time, we come in and we'd have these, not arguments, but these conversations about these fails. And, you were one of the guys I do remember that would most definitely change, you would stick to your guns, but then you start seeing the overall picture, right? What's the value of the fail? What's going to come out of it, right? Mm-hmm. So if I do a minor fail and no one's going to pay attention to it and no one's going to do anything with the information I give them, then really what's the point of doing that?
Right. I'm wasting my time.
You're wasting your time, right? If you come across, we notice a trend for, engine installs or whatever the case may be, stab installs, and we notice this trend, and we notice the same fail over and over again. Well, that could be a training trend. It could be a maintenance trend. Mm-hmm. Those are value-added fails, right? I mean, a lot of the stuff that we wrote up, and I was guilty when I was in staff sergeant. I was an inspector like you, and I was the same way. I was black and white. I found a rock in the engine shop, and I'm going to fail you for 5. Like, that's it. But as you progress, you just kind of realize what bullshit fails those were, and what's the value in them.
And there's also, I don't want to say workarounds, but there's ways to, like, if you find FOD near an aircraft, you don't have to give it a UCR.
Now you're doing a housekeeping inspection.
Yeah, it's a housekeeping inspection, because, now I'm looking around, it wasn't an automatic, I didn't intend to find that kind of thing.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Which would always, with the inverse of that is where you'd have those shitty QA inspectors that would go up to a truck, open the door, and find the parking brake not set. And go, oh, that's UCR. Like, no.
That's
you
a vehicle
started
inspection.
doing a vehicle inspection
right.
when you open that door. Like a lot of maintainers, section chiefs, and in some cases, as we saw working up at QA at Holloman, even some quality QA inspectors don't understand. In order for it to be a UCR, it has to be you spot the fail as the first thing that you see. If you're like, I want to go check out this engine trailer to make sure the jack screws are up or down or whatever the condition is, you're now doing an engine trailer inspection. You can't pull a UCR out of that. And it's almost like it becomes a game of how many UCRs can they rack up. And I don't think it's necessarily a conscious thing, but it's almost like you want to return to your tribe and brag about your kill.
Well, think about it. Right. How many of us had, like I said, you come back and you found some major findings, a UCR, a DSV, a TDV, and I've been there and you're just kind of beaming when you get back, right? I'm like, I caught this guy doing this thing, I educated that airman not to, he's got to have his TO out, right? And it's just part of the culture of QA, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's they don't call it sharks in the water for nothing. You know,
Yep.
it's
It's
not.
I
You
think
know,
it's a balancing act too, because if you have a QA that doesn't find anything, what's the commander going to think? Oh, QA's not looking.
So
Well,
that's
that's
a
It's
funny you
great
bring that
point.
up.
it's a balancing, right?
Well, yeah,
I
you're right.
swear we don't have talking points. I swear we don't. Go
We
ahead,
don't.
Eric.
We're it's just organic.
No, it's funny you bring that up. So when my tenure at Loop or at Holloman as a chief inspector for it was almost 2 years, I think it was. When certain leadership took over, we all know how that kind of played out. But that was exactly their comment, right? And one of the seniors was, "Hey, your guys aren't failing enough stuff, right?" And when I was doing the reports and everyone was getting these good ratings on QA, and I'm like, it's not that they're not failing; they're just taking a common sense approach. We're not failing every single thing you find. There's no point in doing that, right? We're trying to expand what a real fail is and the outcome it's going to have on the squadron. If I give some airman a TDV because his screen locked out, right, which isn't his fault, right, he's going to get his ass chewed by the commander and probably get an LOR. Who knows where that leads to? What's the point in doing that, right? So you educate first, and then you fail. I think QA as educators, I think that's a big chunk that's missing right now. I can't speak for the last couple of years, but when I was young, we go to QA for all the questions we had, right? They were supposed to be the technical experts. I mean, these people, I remember they come in the engine shop and they would wow me with their knowledge of what they knew about engines, what they didn't know about engines. They really, really put their mind to it, and they were there to teach you and train you. They would take their shirt off and sit there and help you install a deke or something if you needed to, right? That went away. I'm not sure when it went away or how, but that portion of QA definitely went away.
Well, it seems like almost there was a sort of metamorphosis when a 7-level, staff tech or whatever would move from the flight line to QA, where no longer it almost like they unburdened any maintenance.
Right.
They no longer have a responsibility for the maintenance effort is pretty much what it became. I'm not saying you, Hackworth, I'm just saying that was the kind of the culture shift from aircraft maintainer in a unit shifting to QA is your job was no longer to help with sorties in any way, shape, or form, except for the fact that on Friday night you got to stay late because there's an engine bay that the Pro Super swears to God they're going to have done before.
We're good.
Your
No weekend duty.
Yeah, their 12-hour mark.
Yeah, right. No weekend duty.
But and it also makes me think that how often is the QA hiring process literally pulling the most experienced, the most honest and ethical maintainers from the unit to put into QA to now almost weaponize their knowledge and experience against the people that they were just supporting and mentoring and stuff. Like it's almost like you're setting up the unit for failure because you're removing the experience to put into QA. So there's a deficit of experience in the unit, and then you're increasing the experience in QA, and it's immediately turned on the unit. It's no longer collaborative. Nobody would call QA for advice anymore because they're afraid of the fail.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Advice. I mean, what happened to the old courtesy inspection, right? Can you come out and take a look at this before you KTL it, right? I mean, we used to do that all the time.
That's never happened when I was QA.
Yeah,
Right.
I did it a lot. I did a lot in phase in Korea.
Yeah, and nobody called us. I mean, in Holloman, they would never call us for anything. It was only strictly for the install.
And I was never known as like, oh, look out for a hack. He's gonna fail.
Right.
I was never like that.
No.
Yeah, I never got any, hey, mind looking at this before, blah blah blah. I probably would have said no, but no, I'm just kidding. But I probably would have just went out and hung out with them and
Right, and that's you guys both been there when you're a tech or staff and you're out there and as a 7 level. I mean, how much time do you really have to sit down and train these guys? In QA, you got all the time in the world, right? Let's be honest.
We're bored.
Right? Yep. So bored. We're playing golf in the office, right? Like
true.
A lot of golf, right?
It's not
a lot
true.
Of golf.
I would never squander the taxpayers' money. By the way.
Oh no.
No.
Eric, you kind of talked about when we were at Holloman, leadership came in and said the pass rate's too high, which is, that's a really kind of layered statement on its own. Because first of all, they're calling your entire QA section liars. They're calling the flight line maintainers without evidence liars because they're signing off work that is not up to standards. I don't know if I have the testicular fortitude to walk into a shop, call everyone in there a liar, and everyone that they're inspecting a liar, unless I had some real fucking evidence. And I'm the type of person that typically gathers fucking evidence.
Nah, not you. Come on.
So, you know,
100%.
and as a section chief, I mean, I used to ping a little bit, but I kind of quickly figured out that this is the only way. Like, the way it should work is QA is always the standard. It never really wavers. The standard is the standard is. It's this many minors, this many majors. You know, Cat 1, Cat 2, whatever. The standard always stays the same. They always inspect the same, and the quality of the unit's maintenance kind of comes and goes as people PCS or the ops tempo is really high. But in reality, what really happens is typically your unit is kind of doing the same quality maintenance all the fucking time. And what happens is QA's standard goes up, which
Right.
creates a fail. And then your people coming on the weekends, they get LORs, they get, you know, their supervisor has to show up in blues to go see the group commander at 9 o'clock in the fucking morning while she's watching Maury Povich on the TV. Not that ever happened.
It's oddly specific.
It's very fucking specific. And what happens is people are stressed out, and then the conversation happens either at the group or at QA or somewhere. Some chiefs get together, and then the QA standard starts dipping because they're trying to let the guys breathe. The guys' fucking work has always stayed the same. The QA does this and this. Like, I remember I would have a string of fails, and you know, I'd be told, you know, McGee, you need to get your fucking hand around this. You need to do it. And I wouldn't do shit for 2 fucking weeks. And then our pass rate would start getting better. There has been no change in the maintenance behavior in the unit, but the QA standard starts doing this. And they come along 2 weeks later. Hey, really good job turning it around. You know, whatever you did, keep doing it. I never had the heart to tell them I didn't do a fucking goddamn thing because, you know, I'm not going to react to everything, because if I go to my people and I hammer them for doing the exact same quality maintenance that they've done for the last 10 years, I'm beating up for no fucking reason. And then 2 weeks later, if I go up to them and be like, hey guys, really good job turning around, they're like, oh, McGee's a fucking idiot because we haven't changed the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's and if when you have a maintenance model where the QA standard is constantly cycling, how does anybody know what the fuck the standard is? That doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've all seen it, right? Hey guys, I want you to go out there and we're going to increase numbers of FO inspections, right? It happened at Holloman, right? They went out there and just hammered the crap out of them because there was some, you know, granted there's some legit concerns, and there was a problem with FO and the walks and everything, but instead of getting to the root of the problem, we just went out there and kept hammering them, right?
Yeah.
Based off of the direction of leadership. So if you're, you know, you have a problem like that, so instead of us going out there and helping find out what the root cause is, hey, let's go take a look at their FOD walks and see what they're doing on FOD walks. Hey, let's go see the route they're taking on their FOD walks. Guess what? How many times we FOD walk a hanger, Hackworth? Right? Barely any, right? We walk the main ramp and not through the hangers. Maybe that's
Is that
part of the
Natalie,
problem.
Tyler? Was that, you're muted? Is that Natalie? You're still muted. Jesus.
Yeah, she's here.
Oh, hey.
Hey, so these two used to work for me a long time ago.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they don't hate me. So that's 2.
Don't hate you.
Wow.
No, I got mad at you a few times, but I don't hate you.
That's fair. Everybody says that.
You're my slave.
So I regarding a QA fail that happened to me. I don't remember the exact specifics of it, but I remember Lem and I were doing a oil top off one day or whatever, and we passed the whatever they were inspecting, and then takes it over to the ready line, sets the parking brake. Remember, he set the parking brake because I called him on it when he didn't set the parking brake. And then the QA inspector that watched us do the maintenance or whatever walks over, hits the handle of the oil cart, it hits the ground, and then the parking brake comes off. Then he writes us up for a UCR for the parking brake coming off, which I mean is debatable at any point whether or not it was set or regardless. But like, it just seemed like at the time, like, I remember it was in a period of time where we were coming in like every weekend for UCRs and all that stuff. I mean, to me, it just seemed like he was searching for something. I mean, and we felt like we had no power to say anything at that point. Like, no, we know we said it. Like, I even vouched for him, but it still ran up as a fail.
Yeah, that's a weird power dynamic too, because you don't want to argue too hard against a QA inspector because they have they can just ruin you.
Well, he told his words exactly were, "I'm a fucking tech sergeant. Shut the fuck up. Take your fail on with it." I mean, it's whatever. It's a small thing, but my question is exactly what you all have been hitting on tonight. Is like, what was the point of that? Like, what did that QA fail?
Right.
What did it?
Well, you just kind of hit on it. You said, you know, the guy says to you, what's the big deal? Just take your fail and go, right?
Yeah.
It is a big deal, right?
Yep.
Because that LOR, that LLC, that whatever accumulates from something like that, you know, UCR you give, it affects an entire squadron, right? I mean, it can affect everyone there. And so like them to, you know, passing that off, and like I said, that's one of the root problems is it's a culture of, oh, I got you, you're done, that's it. Instead of educating and finding out root causes real root causes, not like, oh, why do we keep getting TO fails, right? Oh, the computers keep crapping on us, and whatever the case may be. That's a decision a lot of the QC or QA inspectors on the spot can make right there on the spot, right?
You know,
what's better served, educating this person right now, or actually writing them up for this thing,
a notch on
right?
the belt.
Yeah, and then it's also a conversation of what's a QA inspector's job. The first job is to correct behavior. And you know, I don't know when I figured this out, but I kind of realized that, you know, when you want to when you want to punish somebody, discipline somebody, or correct behavior, it needs to be severe enough that they don't do it again. It needs to be severe enough that their peers maybe see it and they don't want to do it either, as a deterrent to them. And then the third and most important part is it should be the least amount to accomplish the first two. Like,
correct.
If you Article 15 every single fucking thing, then you're going to get a whole lot of fucking compliance, but people are just going to give up and quit. So, like, if I, you know, as a QA inspector, if you can sit somebody down and really clearly explain to them, this is why it's important. This cart could have done this if the brake wasn't set, or on the vehicle, or anything, and you have that conversation of, this is the safety issue. This is where it could cost money. This is, and really it's a discussion of, if you don't do this the right way, it's going to cost you time later, because you might have to fix something, you might have to redo something, you might have to pull the fucking motor again, which is like the worst thing, you know, imaginable. And if QA inspectors had that mindset of, I'm not racking up monthly metrics to hit quotas or whatever it might be, I'm just trying to make individual encounters make better maintainers after every encounter, I think you'd see a pretty big difference in how it's treated. Go ahead, Hack.
So with that statement, just playing the opposite side real quick.
I love the opposite side.
So when, you know, I was an inspector and I would give someone a freebie, if you will, you know, I would still go back to the flight chief or whatever and say, hey, I gave you guys a freebie for blah, 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 blah. But they don't care. They don't care about that. They don't care about freebies. They don't care about passes. But what they do care about is fails. Right. So more to your point, McGee, like, that's how they learn in some cases, by failing, right? So I realized, just being in QA, like, I could brief all day, like, hey, I gave your guy a freebie, or I passed him, but, you know, they don't care about the but part. They just
You're missing the point I made. The point is, it's the least amount to accomplish the first two. So if you give them a freebie, you have the conversation, and their guys are still out there running around with no reflective belts on, or whatever the fucking thing was, then it's progressive discipline. We learn progressive discipline from ALS to NCO Academy to being a parent. Go ahead, Eric.
But think about this. The person, so Hackworth says, I gave you a freebie. So he does his job and he educates the person on the spot of, you know, whatever the instance is. He goes back to the flight chief or the pro super, whoever it is, right? It should be a master sergeant, and say, hey, this is what I found. This is what you guys were doing. Here's what I did. The least amount of, you know, punishment, or whatever you want to call it, or enforcement, would be from that master sergeant getting in that ass of that airman, right? I mean, not just forgetting about it, not saying, oh, thanks for the freebie, Hackworth, you know, I appreciate it. That guy or that section chief needs to, you know, use his chain of command going down. Let me talk to the expediter. I'm going to chew the expediter's ass of why that guy's out there without a selected belt, right? And that's how it should bleed down, right? And that's, I look, it may be a little different now, but when I was an airman, you got your ass chewed, it really meant something. It wasn't like they can't do anything. He didn't give me any paperwork. Even paperwork nowadays. And a
lot of airmen saw the ass chewing as, I'm getting the ass chewing in lieu of paperwork. So, like, it's like they're trying to. Yeah. Like I had to pull Tyler aside one time because he posted a picture of a fucking F-16 up on its ass in field, or he didn't post it, but he was the last person that was known to have possession of it. So I literally brought him in the office and said,
It was the
all right,
team that got me in trouble.
yeah. I said, all right, Tyler, I'm going to just pretend to chew your ass. So you just sit here with the door closed. I'm going to be loud enough for people on the outside to hear. And when you walk out, look mopey. And as far as I know, he never took a picture of another F-16 on its ass at field.
I didn't take.
So
Oh,
yeah,
that was
I noticed.
Made the team.
So, and Eric, you kind of touched on it with, what does the flight chief do? But also you touched on it earlier. What's the root cause of this problem? And I would see it a lot in the morning meeting. And it was one of the things that really infuriated me the most is you would get a fail, gun install fail, whatever it might be. And the first thing that the flaccid, ill-informed, out-of-touch leadership, that's the best words I can come up with, would say is desert him. When there has been investigation none to figure out, did he know the proper way or did he just fucking blow off the proper way? Because deserting somebody because they knew the right way to do it and they just chose not to, you're almost rewarding them because obviously they don't like to do the task, they don't want to do the task, and now they're kind of exempt from doing the task. I saw it at group meetings where the group commander would hear that there was a fail and he would say desert him. And decertification should be, there is evidence that the person does not know how to do the task properly. And a fail doesn't mean they didn't know how. A fail simply means they didn't do it properly.
Right.
And it seems like it's the biggest fucking cop-out ever, that it satisfies everybody that doesn't care about fixing the problem, because everyone reports, to the OIC, yeah, we deserted them. They reported to the squadron, they reported to the group, and then nobody asked after the group, and then something's been done. But the reality is it was a legitimate integrity/maintenance discipline problem, and deserting doesn't fucking solve that.
Well, how do you fix that though? Because whenever we get, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever you get a fail, you have to do what a RCA, a root cause analysis, right?
Sure.
You fail a pre-flight, or your guy fails a pre-flight. Oh, well, what are you going to do about it? He's going to do it the right way next time. You can't say that.
And which guy deserves to be deserted worse? The guy that knew what he was doing and chose not to do the right step, or the guy that just didn't know? Like, I mean, in my opinion, the guy that just didn't know just didn't know. I mean,
but that's the guy that should be deserted, because you're talking about his 623 saying he knows how to do the task. If he legitimately didn't know how to do the task, he should be deserted. It should not be a disciplinary issue or a punishment issue. It's, you genuinely didn't know, let's retrain you and see where we went wrong. If someone knew how to do it, they shouldn't be deserted on it. Go ahead, Eric.
So the first part of we're talking about the root cause, right? How do we get to the root cause? And I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. Giving away freebies is great and it should work. But the whole goal of QA, and playing devil's advocate here, the whole goal of QA too is identify trends throughout the group, not within a certain squadron, not within a certain, shop. So if those aren't being documented properly, right, you will never know you have a trend in a group. If Hackless went out and gave away every engine install write-up that he did, right, and then Chris did the same thing and I did the same thing, the group would never know there was a problem, right? Maybe it's you trace it back to the install engine class or FTD, wherever they go to.
You're right.
So it is important to report, right? But like you said, there's a time to educate and time to report.
And what drives the freebies? Overreaction by the group, RCAs for every fucking nitnoid thing. And what that does is it puts pressure on QA, because they know that these are their peers out in maintenance, to give freebies, because they think it's just as stupid as everybody else that you have to do an RCA and go see the group commander in your blues. And the freebies creep in.
The RCAs are value added in a certain extent, I mean, for that area, but it's not, we don't do an RCA for the group. You only do it for the shop, right? Hey, Sergeant McGee, why did your airman fail, not have his flex belt on? Do an RCA, right?
Yep.
And we all know those are bullshit at a micro level, right? But at a macro level, when you look at the whole group, those could actually do some good, right?
Yep.
If they're looked at in that way, right? You can't isolate every incident and use that RCA as an isolated incident. Hopefully the chief or whoever's running that squadron at the time is looking at all the RCAs the squadron's getting and comparing them all to see what write-ups they're failing and what area they can get improved in. but everything can get chased to a root cause, but I'm sorry, I forgot your buddy's name online here.
Tyler.
Yeah, he brings up a good point, right? Some airmen, they just don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. The guys that choose not to do something on purpose, hey, I'm not going to wear my reflective belt, even I know I should have it, right? Those guys need to get hammered, right? Because that's an integrity issue. It's not a knowledge issue.
Right. So, it's interesting that you kind of bring up, the group with RCAs, because I think that the root cause analysis, it's almost like if you look at an AIB versus an SIB, an accident investigation board and a safety investigation board. The accident investigation board, their findings can send people to prison. It could be UCMJ actions taken against you, so on and so forth. The safety investigation board this is all protected, privileged information. It'll never get out. What we're trying to do is not hold anybody necessarily responsible. We're trying to figure out what happened, what went wrong, so we can fix the thing. We're not looking to hurt you. But there's going to be an AIB after this. So they're going to look at all the same stuff, and you should probably have a lawyer for that, because they are going to be looking to lay blame. And typically the military is trying to lay blame specifically on people because it makes the military look better. So if RCAs were treated more in the model of the SIB of, RCAs don't need to be pretty. They don't need to be, you don't need to gloss over the ugly parts of your unit. Let's really look at the root cause. Let's know what's going on. Let's not fire people over it. Let's not do anything like that. Let's not go crazy over it. Let's really gather this data and look for trends. And it might be a one-off or two-off trend in a unit, and it's not group-wide. But I think the problem is discipline, promotion, careers get tied to QA pass rates, performance. Section chiefs have to answer for why their guys are doing stuff to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And it cooks into it where you don't want to give a root cause analysis. You just want to get deep enough where no one's going to say, is there anything underneath it? You peel back as many layers to satisfy all the people, and then you send it up and call it a day. And that doesn't fucking fix anything.
Right. Well, I mean, like you said, the fact that your QA rate ties into your rating, right? I mean, how many times did you get a phone call asking someone what their QA rate was for the quarter, for the year, or whatever the case may be? How many times have we put that on our own EPRs, right? My squadron QA pass rate. Not like that. Most master sergeants have zero freaking to do with what kind of pass rate the squadron gets, right? Masters and above. That was always a bullshit rating, or bullshit bullet in my opinion. But when it's tied to your career, when it's tied to that, I mean, yeah, you want to inflate the numbers. You want to make it look good and pretty and put a nice bow on it, instead of doing actual work and say, hey, we got a problem. We got a real problem here. And a lot of times, chiefs aren't willing to do that. Look at their own squadron and say, I got a big problem here. And, let's get the brains in the room that we can figure this out. And seldomly is QA called in on that, right?
Yeah.
Just like QA is not. I mean, we get called out to do group training, right? Hackworth, how many times you go do a pre-flight training, right?
Yeah.
6,000 times, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the type of training they need, right? They don't need giant group settings where everybody's tired as fuck and hungover and they don't want to be there.
No one's paying attention.
Nope.
Right. No one's right. You need to be out there one-on-one, and but in reality, when it's all tied together, when your performance, and even in QE or QA too, right? That a lot of that stuff makes your EPR bullets. How many inspections you did, what was your pass rate? Like, I don't know why that should even freaking matter. Why does it even matter?
No.
Yeah.
So with that, can we talk about how we used to do things as far as, QA meetings and discussing?
You can talk about whatever you want, man.
QA was great. I love QA.
I love that. So I love the fact that all the inspectors literally scrutinized every single inspection for the previous day. I think that was awesome, just because we got to see different sides, and we got to see like, oh, I guess that isn't a fail. Oh, I guess that is a pass, and all that kind of stuff. I think that was good, and I think it's good just to have that different perspective, and I think it helps the member, whoever we failed, like, oh, you shouldn't have failed, so you're not going to get failed,
Right. Yeah, I mean, I do remember we had some great debates in the office, right?
Heated debates sometimes.
Sometimes they were, right? But that's okay, because I like to see the passion behind what people believe is right. And not every interpretation is correct, unfortunately, some people get charged to make that ultimate decision, right? Chief inspectors, it's basically their job to decide yay or nay, right? And that's what it boils down to. But I mean, discussing it and looking at the logical sense. Now, what was that guy's name? He was a weapons guy right before I left.
Yeah,
that's
we
Let's not even discuss. Let's not even discuss.
We can discuss him in hypotheticals. No
Yeah.
names.
Okay, sorry. Either way, what I'm
You're
saying is, that guy he was completely black and white with everything, right?
Yeah.
There was his blinders were on, and that was it. And when
That
we
was
got in those
fun.
discussions, what's that?
That was fun.
That was not fun.
I love those conversations.
Yeah, when we got in those discussions, but it really opened. Eventually he came around, or hey, there's times for people to change my mind, right? I mean, it's not like I know everything, right? And shit, a lot of times Chris would tell me I'm dead wrong, and we would sit there and talk about it for a good hour.
Yeah.
And then, but at the
You were
outcome,
usually wrong.
No, I know.
No.
Usually wrong, right?
I was always right. It's just me and Eric were agreeing on it.
But we, those QA courts. I mean, that's something beneficial, and that's something you see that happens within QA. Do you see it happen within the squadrons? I don't see it. I never really saw it as a pro super or lead super or anything that, even a section chief.
We did it in the 308s when I was under Chief Roberts, best chief I ever had. Every single Tuesday, we had something called hits and misses, where every single section, first of all, they had analysis in our morning meeting. They would have to stick around and basically say, here's where your trends are. This is where you're performing, underperforming. And then the first time analysis showed up, it was something like A1C that didn't know shit about shit. And he got blasted because he wasn't ready. But what was really interesting is every section had to review the last week of what did you get right? What process did you create that worked well? Or what personnel issue did you have? What did you do that was really good? And then what did you fail to do? What did you flounder on? What was terrible? What did you try to do and fail? Why did you fail? Kind of dissected, and it was very much a no judgment sort of zone. And we would take those lessons from each section to really kind of, and afterwards, sometimes I go up to other section chiefs and be like, hey, tell me about this, because I didn't know you were doing this. And I think it really boils down to every healthy organization has at least some sort of meeting where egos are shelved and everybody's trying to learn from other people's, thoughts, judgments, decisions, and, taking best practices and dissecting failures to see what could be maybe mitigated in the future for everybody. And I think a lot of people are afraid to do that because so much of your career aspirations and goals are tied to how you're perceived by your supervisors, and nobody wants to sit in a meeting. Like the guy that won't be named, that he was probably, it sucked that he was wrong 99.9% of the time. So every single meeting was basically exposing his failures, but we would still have long conversations of, let's walk through your logic. Let's see how you got from here to here.
Let's teach. It's a teaching moment.
And there would be a sharp left somewhere, and you'd be like, all right, this is where you went awry. And, if you can't have meetings where you are capable of dissecting those failures, your unit is, the only reason your unit is succeeding is by sheer fucking grit, or you happen to have a lot of performers by the luck of the PCS roulette system.
Right. Well, when you sit down and the guy realizes, hey, this is where you took your left. Unfortunately, that's when it comes to the hiring practice for QA. Some of those people can't get out of there. They can't see any other way. They can't see their mistake. They can't see their error. They can't see how changing their write-up would be more beneficial than a fail versus not a fail. Right. Yeah. And that ties into, like I said, the culture and the type of people that are inspectors. The type of people that are put up for inspection, right? I'm used to, hey, we're going to put up our best guys to be inspectors because overall it's going to help the group out versus my squadron. Now, that I think that kind of went away a little bit too, right? I don't think at sometimes, chiefs are sitting down looking at their manual and QA says, hey, I need 2 bodies. And they're like, oh, well, here, let me put up these 2 guys. They're definitely my star.
Yeah, we had some real idiots going to QA. I'll name Crump because Crump's a fucking moron. I don't have a problem naming him.
I haven't heard that name in 2 years, Chris. And I could have gone another 500.
There's no one that's going to watch this video that's going to be like, I'm fucking not following 20 years done because I really like Crump. That's not.
I'm trying to think if I remember Crump I do remember Crump when he was a tech sergeant. I remember that.
I
remember that.
He's a bag of crap. God, he's a bag of crap.
yeah, and we would, and the units would feel the effects of, you know, you get the wrong inspector there. They're a dangerous combination of ignorance and ego, where they don't know shit about shit. They're confident enough to write everything up. And then, you know, it also begs the question of, there is not a good appellate track for QA fails. If a QA inspector writes a QA fail, and let's say it's an idiot and he's completely wrong, and you can take, you know, let's say the parking brake, where you're like, okay, it was not one step away from failure. It was in park. The parking brake, you know, wasn't set. It wasn't on a hill. There's a lot of things going on here. That shouldn't be a UCR. It wasn't one away from failure. Or how about it shouldn't have been a UCR at all because you had to open the door and you started doing a vehicle inspection. Where do you take that? You take that to the chief inspector. And if the chief inspector is my team, my guys, and they're not necessarily interested in doing the right thing, they're doing I don't want my guys to look bad, or I don't want to make it look like I'm running my shit fucked up. Where else do you go? You can go chief to chief, but then after that, there's no real recourse here. Besides your chief going, I'm not going to consider that for your EPR because I know it was bullshit. But there's a wound done to a maintainer when they know that they are right, and QA still sticks them with a fail that is not just.
Right.
That destroys all of the relationship with the QA.
I want to go on record and say I didn't have a problem with Crump. Okay.
I think less of you. You should have. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Just to put that out there.
Oh man.
Oh man, see, Crump scared him away. Didn't even walk away.
Not at all. Oh yeah, he's going.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at overall, a guy like him going out there, you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said ego, right? Ego plays. It should not. I mean, it does play a part in a lot of maintenance. A lot of people, there's big egos out there, but you know, when you're coming to sit down and you approach a team that they're busting their ass, it's been, you know, 12, 15 hours, they're out there, you know, working, and you find something, and at that time your ego has to get checked, right? You kind of got to be like, let me look at the overall situation of what I'm approaching here. Let me see the impact it's going to have on whatever I decide to do, because you're not really told. I mean, we all know about seeing the commander for fails and paperwork, but when you're in QA, you really don't give a shit about that. Right?
Yeah, you're insulated.
I mean, you just don't really care because it doesn't affect you, right? If something doesn't affect you, you're not really paying that much attention to it.
Besides,
right?
as a human being in an NCO caring about the well-being of the other maintainers, we're saying in a purely sterile sort of way.
Sure, I got you.
Right? Yeah,
I got you.
That's how you get your hackles up.
Yeah,
you're like, I care about
that's
it.
not true. I love them.
Yeah, it isn't true with a good QA inspector, but the problem is, in order to function as a QA inspector, you don't have to
block
care
that out.
And you don't have to care about the people at all. That is not a job requirement in order for you to be a adequate inspector.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and, you know, define. I mean, how do you define a good inspector, right? I mean, that definition. You're a good inspector. Do you hit your numbers every month? You know.
I don't think there is. I don't think there necessarily is a good inspector. I think it's all like, because you inspect differently than what I inspect differently. You know, I can consider you a good inspector. You consider me a good inspector. You know,
I think a good inspector has clean kills, and where their kills aren't clean, they're willing to change a fail to a pass. Like they're flexible.
They're humble.
Yeah.
So like in that example, who was I forgot the inspector. There was an inspector that brought up the failure for the aircraft grounding, right?
It was probably Rice.
Was it me?
It might have been Rice.
Was it me?
That sounds like a Rice, right?
Like,
and that's not bashing Rice.
It was parked
Rice
like outside further or something like that.
Yeah, it was out.
Fire extinguisher.
I think it was out on the
It was
ramp
a fire
where
extinguisher.
Oh, that might have been too.
It was most definitely it was a UCR for the
grounding
course,
because there was no ground. There was probably no grounding points when they had them like way out, halfway between the taxiway and something else.
Oh no, I was in a hangar, I think.
Oh no.
Right, aircraft was in a hangar, and anyway, so he wrote it up, but then he started doing his own research on everything, right? And he ended up finding it. I'm like, hey, because he looked at that stupid book with the stupid reg in it, and most time people will slap that reg on the report, and no one even checks it. Not even the squadron that got failed.
Yep.
Guess what? Reg not there anymore. Guess what? All the stuff he could find, he could not find that reg anywhere.
Only when maintenance is being performed or something like that.
Yeah, or
No,
refuel.
it wasn't even being maintenance. It was
I think
refuel
refuel.
or
No, that's the only. Oh, refuel. Okay.
Yep.
refuel and weapons. Anything
Yep.
with
Okay.
weapons and refuel.
Yep.
It never said anything about maintenance. If I go to take a panel off,
Yep.
okay, that's maintenance, but not required to be grounded.
Yeah.
Right? They do it at the airport all the time, right? I mean, you see them out there,
Yep.
not grounded.
Yep.
So, anyway, that like a guy like Rice, right, willing to go, an extra step to make sure his fail's legit and make sure the regs that he's quoting to people as a failure is something that pertains to that exact failure, right? And we use a lot of general regs, and you can discuss black and white all day for the regulations, how you interpret it, how I interpret it. But he's one of those guys that, hey, when he's wrong, he's wrong.
Mhm.
And then the problem is nothing changed after that, right? It was still a UCR for some reason.
That's
I
horseshit.
don't know why. I know. I mean, I can't name. Well, you don't want to name names, but I got in quite an argument with a couple seniors over that. So, but military, right? So, suck it up.
Yeah.
Write it up.
Military.
Right? What do you do?
Yeah.
You do your best.
That's hashed. The only person that still applies to is you, right, Hack? Everybody else on this discussion.
I'm trying. That's why I'm
are free
being.
men.
That's why I feel like I'm being very PC.
Yeah,
You
that's
know?
good. You should, right?
Yeah.
You host a
I love you, Crump.
podcast talking about raw talking, right? And you're withholding
that's-
all of your
But
opinions.
I'm sure his podcast has to
That's
do with more
different, though.
Oh, it's not
social.
work related. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we don't really try to intertwine that, but obviously we have that in the back of our heads. You know what I mean?
right.
Yeah. No
Well,
worries.
there's
I want to
not-
invite you next time.
Oh, okay, cool.
Not enough in the world to talk about, right? We just talk about mates all the time.
Yeah. There's nothing really going on.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
That was we're pretty much out of time, but I really wanted to thank you guys for doing this. I mean, last week I did have that discussion, and it kind of went better than I thought it would, and that was on shit I didn't really know anything about. But this felt like it was definitely something that we could package up and distribute to people that are still out there in maintenance.
Yeah, well, I think this is a great conversation. I think it's a huge portion of maintenance right now, quality and quality assurance, and there needs to be some kind of shift. Like I said, the focus of quality needs to be more on training and educating versus numbers and hammer fucking somebody. It's got to be and it's got to come from the top. It's got to be driven down, and I think that's why I fear it's just like a cycle. It's the same cycle that keeps repeating until somebody goes in there and starts making these changes. It's going to continue. But hopefully, if somebody listens to this and hear it and they become a QA inspector, they'll understand. Hey, there's a lot more to a write up than just going out there and writing a piece of paper down and then entering it into a computer.
You have any last attacks, Hack?
No, I don't actually. I don't. I mean, like what Shromsky said, I hope that the next future inspector realizes that first they're there to not first, but they're there to train as well, right? So look for that airman that literally is just lost. You know what I mean? Just doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
And
instead of seeing him as raw meat, go and
and fail
Right.
them, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
go help them out, and then I think they'll appreciate that later, and they'll also learn to be like, to learn like, hey, QA is actually not so bad.
Right.
Be that change, I guess, and not be that stereotypical shark, if you will.
And I have a question on that. Like, as somebody that got out as a senior airman, what's the best recourse for somebody on the line as a senior airman A1C? Like, I don't know what to do, but I see QA going by. I was always, fear QA type.
No, you shouldn't. You see QA go by, you have a question about anything, there should be almost the first people you call, especially if they're out there, readily available. Hey, I got a problem. I got a situation.
Know that you can call them without any recourse of like a failure.
Absolutely.
that's how it should be, but it depends on the inspector, it depends on the base,
Yeah.
it depends on the culture.
I remember I would go out to the line and just walk the line. I wouldn't even have my clipboard with me. I would just go out there and walk. You know what I mean? Like, I think there was a few of us who did that. Just go out and just not necessarily mob, but just go out and just hang out with everybody and see how everybody's doing and not worry about fails or passes or anything like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have several instances of QA coming up to me and, calling freebies, whatever, hey, like you missed this step or you forgot this or whatever. And I mean,
Sure.
several, but it was never a point where I could be like, I was out on the line by myself doing X task, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I see QA going by, and my instant feeling is fear because I don't.
You drop
like,
everything, right?
Yeah,
Put all your tools down, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
that's,
yeah.
Just cleaning up.
sit on them, like
that's totally wrong too. That's so wrong to
videos
have
that
that
don't
feeling of fear, right? When you know, those should be the guys that you can depend on to come show up and you know, show you, right? I mean, your 7 level's not always there. Your expediter, your pro super, all those guys, they're not always there, right? So QA shows up and like, hey man, I need some help. Show me how to do this, and what am I missing here? And absolutely. Now, if you're gonna have like a, you know, some kind of major UCR or fail or safety violation, if you're doing service and hydraulics and you have no PPE on, well, of course you should be, you shouldn't call them over.
Right.
But if it's legit, yeah, absolutely, man. And I just hate that happens. It really sucks.
I got more confident with QA once I made staff sergeant and got my 7 level and everything. That's when I actually became more comfortable asking questions because I was like, well, I'm really on the line now. Like, maybe talk to these guys. Like, that was me a lot. So there. I know there's good to it.
The reason I asked that is for like senior airmen on the line right now is because like when I was in, the culture was like just keep them as far away as possible. Like pretend like
that's gonna be it's gonna be really specific to the base. So like the advice is more geared towards QA. This is how to have a healthy QA organization, so your senior airmen are willing to come up to. Right now, I would not advise any airman to go up and track down QA and bring them over to a job because I don't know what the individual culture is at each duty station unit. I don't know if their flight chief's an idiot that's gonna throw them under the bus or whatever. John, did you have anything? You're muted right now, but do you have anything, John?
None, man. I'm just listening in. I had to stay muted because I got some kids running around and yelling and stuff.
Oh, is that Mascalino?
Mm-hmm.
What's up?
What's up, man? What's going on?
We got the gang back together.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody kind of dropping by. I'm going to stop the recording and then we can hang out a little bit longer. Thanks.